We interrupt your important doom scrolling with an important news bulletin. Battlebots is back!
If you haven't seen the premiere episode of the 2020 season of Battlebots, you should absolutely go watch it right now. You don't want to miss it. More importantly, we're about to discuss all kinds of spoilers in this episode, so make sure that you're all caught up.
Tonight we chat with special guests from Whiplash, Matt Vasquez, in the season opening fight, and we meet a newcomer, a big-time newcomer, David Eaton from our Lord and Savior, Rusty.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
And we're Mike and Andrea Galately from Team Witch Doctor.
I'm Will Bales from Hypershock. That's the one.
And this is a Tale of the Tape after show.
Welcome to Tale of the Tape. You may have noticed that BattleBots format is a little bit different than in previous years, and we're going to do the same thing. Before, we would go into excruciating detail and all the little minutia of every possible robot and fight until we were blue in the face.
So we're going to be doing things differently as well. We're going to be going into a little bit more behind the scenes and answering a lot of fan questions.
So without further ado, let's start with a quick 30-second recap of the episode.
30 seconds on the clock.
In this episode, we saw the long-awaited return of BattleBots, 6 months after its scheduled pre-pandemic film date.
The crew's all here. Chris, Kenny, Farouk, and Jenny all returned along with a new face as Peter Abrahamson became our on-screen bot whisperer. Sawblaze and Whiplash realized they might be long-lost cousins. Fusion's debut got heated, and Axe Backwards turned into a giant fireball.
We even got hair care advice from Will in the opera boxes. Bloodsport was out for blood in his first match. Shredderator got beaten by a paperclip. We witnessed the glorious rise of Rusty. A snake and a shark walk into a bar. And Endgame upsets every Tombstone fan on the internet. So speaking of new faces, we mentioned him before. He might be new on camera, but Peter Abrahamson has been always behind the scenes as a liaison between builders and Chris and Kenny during the build season before we normally ship the robots.
Yeah, Peter is always keeping track of all the builders, all the build captains, making sure that everyone's actually ready to go. So we have an intimate relationship.
They mentioned this on the show, and it's absolutely true. Peter's a veteran of the sport. He's built some amazing robots in the past, and all of us as builders have tremendous respect for him. I'm really looking forward to see what he provides as a technical commentary before matches.
Now it's time for this week's deep dives into the bots. This week's first deep dive is a personal favorite. He is beauty. He is grace. He is literally named after decomposing steel. It's Rusty. And Dave sent in a video talking about what makes Rusty, well, Rusty.
When I rolled in with Rusty, a lot of people were like, what is that? That exhibition bot? That NARC bot? Does it work? And there was a little bit of that. There was a little skepticism, and I assumed, a newcomer, and Rusty, and I assumed there'd be a little bit of that, but overwhelmingly, I mean, people really were like, oh, he's cute, and then they just kind of, once I started going through the internals and stuff, and I showed them how serious I was about actually fighting with Rusty, the teams in the community really just, they came alive, and they came together, and they were super friendly. I mean, nobody was ever really mean. But they were all friendly. They all offered to help me, whether or not I didn't have to ask for help. People were like, you want help? Oh, you're getting help. So the community and the builders especially, they are wonderful, phenomenal people. And the online reaction and the fan reaction, I didn't expect it to, I expected kind of the same thing. I expected skepticism. I didn't expect there to be the outpouring of affection for Rusty that there has been. I love it. I thank everybody very much for it. It's very kind of everyone. Rusty's weapon is a air hammer. It is essentially a pneumatic jackhammer that is a hand tool that is used to remove frozen pins, shear off bolts, things like that, cut panels, puncture panels, and so on. And it is quite effective at it. My idea behind using it was that a lot of robots have either thin top armor, exposed chains, belts, and or they like to put slots in their top armor. They're like, whoop, 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 whoop. All over the top armor, they're like, bing, 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 bing. They put a bunch of slots in there, a bunch of beautiful slots. And those are prime real estate for the air hammer. And the nice thing about it is when I come in with the air hammer, and that's why his arms are so boxy, is they're meant to reach around and behind the opponent's main weapon, which is a lot of times spinners, horizontal spinners, stuff like that. So, and what I can do then is I can reach behind them and I can find those exposed areas. Now, unlike a regular hammer, I don't have to keep swinging the air hammer all the time. I can just, once I get a good hit, I can just leave the air hammer on and let it run. It'll chatter around and either puncture through a thin panel, or it'll find a small hole or opening where I can get inside at the internals of the other bot. That was the real thing I was looking to accomplish with that weapon. So his internals are, he has a pair of brushless motors, a left and a right motor. It's 4,000 watts per side. He has obviously a pair of speed controllers in there driving the motors. He is LiPo batteries. He is on a 24-volt system, and the 24-volt system is regulated down to 12 volts for the Arduino, the air solenoids, and the 5-volt switching relay that the Arduino runs for the air solenoids. And that's about it. I mean, otherwise, I'm going to patent it. I call it free-range wiring. Right? And I don't believe, people keep talking about you need to secure wiring, you need to route it, you need to make it pretty, just stuff it in a box. You're good to go, right? It's fine. I would like people to know that Rusty's eyes, other than being beautiful, and they do obviously, they have an aesthetic purpose to them, but everything on him is functional, and the eye's functional purpose is to notify me that when I engage the weapons, that the Arduino is functioning. The Arduino is receiving signals from the receiver, and that it is ready to send the death signals to the relay in the air solenoids. So it is a nice way when they do the robots activate, I can bink, and I'm like, bunk, the eyes came on, I'm like, he's ready to go.
God bless Dave and Rusty. He interviews so well.
And boy, can he dance. I don't know if the world was ready, but it's being taken by storm by that Rusty shake. I've seen it everywhere.
Everywhere.
On the other side of the spectrum, Fusion's pretty darn impressive. Have you guys seen some of the specs on this thing?
It's absolutely insane. Okay, you were looking at it. It's what, a sow on the back and then a bite force on the front?
Yeah, I think their spinning weapon, both weapons are right at 250 miles an hour, which is the limit on the rules. So I think it is. They said that the horizontal weapon is about as powerful as Son of Whyachi's weapon, and the front is like a bite force.
And somehow they're still able to put as much armor on the robot as both of those combined.
Which is unfair. It should be illegal.
I think it's 3/8 inch AR 500, which is actually thicker than our armor
What?
on the front. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how they have weight for this stuff.
Okay, they have weight for it because it's like this big. It's like super small.
It is super small. It's basically two weapons with wheels in between.
And somehow they still managed to fit 6 motors in there?
6 motors. And 15 batteries.
Really?
Yeah.
Lord.
I just saw a photo that we'll have to post them in the video somewhere, wherever that is.
We'll just put it right here.
Right.
Right
Dead
in
center.
the middle of the screen. Yeah.
And I know I've seen them doing posting a lot of videos of their test footage of both the horizontal and the vertical weapons, and tearing up some crazy farm steel. I mean, it's a scary, scary robot.
It's two scary robots glued together though. That's the problem. There might be too much power.
It's certainly possible. And obviously, I mean, it's all brushless, and brushless technology, I know a lot of people have had issues keeping these things reliable. So in the first match, they had some, that pesky fire coming out of there, which there was some speculation on if it was batteries or whatnot, but later on they did release, Whyachi just posted that they confirmed that it was speed controller related failure.
Yeah, and Reese, honestly, in his interview, didn't even really seem surprised about it. I think when most robots catch fire, the builders are usually a little concerned or surprised, but he seemed to know exactly what it was. And like you were saying, in the videos that they posted, they showed that they actually had this problem right before they shipped. They saw a speed controller catch fire.
Yeah, very similar problems, like the same fire. It was weird.
Yep. So they said they had some testing that they need to do after this fight to, I guess dial in. I don't know. Will, you could talk about brushless.
Oh,
things.
brushless works first time every time without fail.
Especially 6 brushes at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, what could go wrong?
Although this is a super veteran team, so this is not the first time they're building a robot or of this size, or even with brushless motors. So I have a feeling they're going to get it figured out really quick.
I hope so. They definitely need to with an 0-1 record coming off of the first episode, but I think they'll get it sorted.
So we've been talking about the newcomers this episode, but we also saw a lot of veterans take the stage. Personally, I was really excited to see Whiplash in the opening match of this episode. It was a really even match, and I think we saw some awesome things from Whiplash, even though he obviously didn't take the win in that match. It was pretty clear from some things that we were able to see that there's some upgrades, and I suspect that there's even more significant upgrades under the hood. So here's Matt to tell us all about it.
So this season, there are quite a few changes to Whiplash. Some of them are kind of obvious, some of them not so obvious. But I'd say one of the main improvements we made was the tires. So in previous years, we've run foam-filled Carefree tires, which people like them because they're cheap, they're light, they have, somewhat decent traction. But at the end of the day, they're just way too fragile, and we'd get hit by a spinner, one hit, barely touched, and it'd be gone. And we'd be down a tire, down 2 tires, sometimes down 3. And, we can't have that in Battlebots. So this season we were running fully vulcanized rubber tires from Team Warrior in Brazil with Black Dragon. So we sent them our designs, and then they made the tire, sent them back to us. They were awesome. They seemed to be indestructible. I mean, even in our first fight with Sawblaze, he hit the tire, really nothing happened, just, a little cut in it, and that was about it. So other than that, one of the more noticeable improvements is the disc is a bit bigger than last season. So last season and the season before, we ran a 11.5-inch diameter disc that was 2 inches thick of a AR500. And this season we are running a 1-inch thick, 14-inch diameter disc. So, this allows us to have a higher tip speed, a little bit more inertia. I think it looks cooler overall. And it also allows us to have a bigger tooth on the disc. So last season our tooth had about, 1 inch of bite. This season we have 2 inches of bite, which I think should be, give us more of an ability to damage our opponents, which will be nice. So we have the wheels, the disc, and I think probably one of the most important changes this season is we have a lot of different configurations for different opponents. So, we have, when we fought Sawblaze, that was actually our attachment that's meant to fight against Huge. It's, the 2 tall front flat plates that were meant to kind of, reject Jameson's attacks like that if he was to attack us from the front. And, or block Huge's spinner. We had that one. We have one attachment similar to the fronts from last season, which are just 2 hinged, just front plates on the front that kind of ride flat on the floor. So that's mostly for fighting lifter robots and opponents similar to our own robot. And another attachment is we have 2 flat forks that ride on the floor that are hinged. So that's to fight the ground scrapers, the really low robots that we need to get under to win the fight. And then I think probably the most important attachment we have this season is our horizontal spinner attachment. So the previous 2 seasons, we ended up losing the Tombstone, which, Tombstone's, a great robot, but at the same time, you need to be able to handle horizontal spinners to win Battlebots. So those 2, 10-pound front plates were not cutting it to fight horizontal spinners. So this season, instead of 20 pounds of front armor, we have a 45-pound plow that goes on the front. So when we use this configuration, we remove the disc, we put all that weight into the front armor, and the plan is just to be able to plow into any horizontal spinner and take whatever hits they can give us and just do our thing. But hopefully we get to fight a horizontal spinner this season, and you guys get to see it, because that was probably the configuration I was most excited to try out. But I'd say those are the main improvements to Whiplash this season. There are some, internal improvements, but it's basically the same inside as it was the last 2 seasons, or I'd say the last season.
It was really interesting to see they swapped over to the Brazilian wheels from the Carefrees. We both had those Carefree tires on various versions of Hypershock and Witch Doctor. And I think you guys swapped first, and then we did to the tires. And we've all like chosen different things, but everyone agrees pretty much unanimously that Carefree suck.
Yeah, we would joke with the Carefree tires that if it even thought about getting close to the wall, the tire would just jump off. It was just jump ship before it even had a chance to get ripped off.
Yeah, and ironically enough, it was a Brazilian team who took our tires off and made us, realize that was the final straw to switch away from those.
Thanks, Minotaur. Hey, Will, have you noticed that Chris Rose is a little bit extra savage this season?
Yeah, what's it about? I mean, it's hilarious, but it's like borderline mean.
Nah, I think it's pretty mean.
I mean, he always does it with a smile on his face, so I can't stay mad for long.
And speaking of Chris Rose, I think he definitely turns up to level 11 this season with his antics. So I think we're going to start a new segment in our show, which is Chris Roast of the Night.
So this week on the Chris Roast of the Night.
Robots activate.
All right, so let's put this into some perspective, Kenny. This probably isn't a preview of the Battlebots Championship final.
No, that's right. These are...
Every week, all of us are going to have questions, fans, builders, and we need somebody to figure out what those are. So Behind the Bots, who has a great podcast, volunteered to help answer those questions. So they've gone out and done a survey of builders and fans on Facebook, and they came back with 2 questions for us this week. So every week we're going to have a new segment, and this week's questions are this.
Hi everyone, this is Kyle from Behind the Bots with this week's big listener question. Sent in by Mary Catherine Carr, who has 2 questions this week. First, a certain builder claims that they were KO'd by the screws operator not reversing the screws. But we heard that they were all operated by a computer. They were automated. So, is there a way for someone to manually operate the screws, or is this a massive conspiracy theory?
Wow, that is an excellent question. Unfortunately, that's kind of above my pay grade. So, I'm going to send it over to our technical advisor, Technical T-Rex.
Wait, what?
Technical T-Rex.
The Battlebox Arena has 6 screws along the wall, each powered by a separate motor and controlled by the automated arena hazard system. Under normal operation, the screws turn in an upward direction, pulling robots up and out of the arena. The system is programmed to automatically reverse the screws when a robot or robot part jams the mechanism. However, if the screw drive system is damaged or becomes too jammed, the automatic reversal may not work. Robots stuck in or on the screws do not qualify for an unstick, so a jammed screw can lead to a loss by knockdown.
It makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. Thanks, Technical T-Rex.
Who is it? Who?
I thought that was pretty great. So now for our next question.
Mary's second question was around Team Whyachi's new bot Fusion. Mary asks, do you believe a robot can successfully balance the forces of both a horizontal bar and drum spinner without turning into a chaotic mess?
I mean, I guess the question really is, can it be a controlled chaotic mess?
I mean, they do have a lot of advantages to it being a chaotic mess. They have 2 super powerful weapons in a small, well-armored robot. But there are some technical challenges for sure with a robot like that.
Yeah, so something that we all understand is vertical spinners. When you see, for example, Minotaur. When Minotaur does their victory dance because they ruined your robot at the end of the fight, they kick up on either side. And that's because of the gyroscopic effect of the spinning weapon on Minotaur. So the front half, it's the front, right, Andrea? Yeah. Yeah, so the front half of Fusion has those kinds of effects going for it whenever they turn. But what does that mean when the horizontal does the thing? How does the horizontal affect the vertical?
I think the horizontal has its own gyroscopic forces that I don't know if they're hurting or they're trying to oppose the vertical weapon or actually amplifying that problem.
Either way, all I know is that once Fusion is just a little bit off the ground, once they're not parallel to the ground, that thing is going to be unstable going flying. And they do have that big horizontal spinner, so it's going to dig into the arena and just shoot all over the place.
I think that's the biggest problem. On paper, maybe the forces counteract each other, but as soon as that horizontal bar gets a little bit unstable, it's going to hit the ground and send them flying.
Well, you say problem, but also if you're trying to drive against a robot like this, imagine trying to guess where Fusion's not going to land. Where is a safe spot in the arena against a robot like this?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like when you fight Tombstone and Tombstone's bouncing around the arena, you don't go after him while he's in the air. You wait for him to land, because if he lands on you, you're going to have a real bad time.
Yeah.
And the same thing could be said for Fusion. If he lands on you, you're going to have a bad time.
As long as Fusion is durable enough to withstand all that wacky breakdancing.
Which it seemed in this first fight that they could not. However, if they get this, they're going to get their robot fixed up, and it can hold its own, then...
I mean, this is the Whyachis we're talking about. They've built a lot of robots. They built a lot of heavyweight robots. Obviously, first match with a brand new robot as crazy as this, it's not surprising to see some teething issues, but I have a feeling they're going to get it figured out.
Back to the question is, can a robot like this be not a chaotic mess? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it can or can't, but you could definitely use that chaotic mess to your advantage.
And now it's time for... Moment of the Week.
My favorite moment of the week was when Chris Rose walks out of the tunnel at the beginning of this episode and says,
Number 5 is alive.
Can you believe it? After a year like 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, we were able to all get together and fight our robots.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, we were supposed to fight in April. You had your robot ready, right?
It was pretty much ready to go in the box, and we had some final parts that needed to be painted and stuff, but we had 2 robots built, functional. We tested both of them already, and a week before ship date, they canceled everything, or postponed it rather. So I wasn't sure if this was going to happen. Every few months going by was hopeful, and then glimmer of hope came, and then it went away. And then, eventually they called us to do the show. So,
I mean, it was an amazing feat. The cast and crew, including the builders, totals up to about 500 people on set for 2 weeks straight, not sleeping enough because we're building robots. There's stress. Basically, everybody gets sick every year because it's such an intense environment. And this year we made it through the entire 2 weeks with 0 COVID cases. And not only that, they followed up with us 2 weeks after, and no builders or cast or crew got sick.
Yeah, it was an incredible production. It was the largest in the Western Hemisphere at the time, and it was the first big post-COVID production of that scale. So the fact that it went off as well as it did without any major issues was a miracle, frankly.
Yeah, BattleBots did an amazing job. They had COVID police on set. They had hand washing stations. There was a huge COVID protocol that Discovery and a bunch of people had to sign, including the city of Long Beach, to get the show, permitted to film. So it was an amazing feat by everybody involved, and we just wanted to say thank you, honestly, for doing that and really bringing some normalcy to our lives this year, and letting us fight our robots that were ready to go, 7 months ago. So
Right, Will?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like March. Totally done. That's our show. Thank you for watching the first episode of Tale of the Tape. If you have any questions you want answered, go to Facebook, go find Behind the Bots, and ask them your question. Maybe it'll be the question of the week next week.
We'd like to be able to say that no robots were hurt in the making of this first BattleBots episode, but as we all know, that's simply not true.
So, as we conclude our show, please take a moment and honor the fallen robots of this last episode. I'm Will Bales from Witch Doctor.
And I'm Mike from Hypershock.
And this is Tale of the Tape.
I'm Matt Vasquez. I'm Rob Burgundy. I'm Will Bales.
Wait, what's my line? I don't have it on my card.
Sorry it took me so long to get this video done. As you can see, I'm doing it in my car during lunch. Just got back from the Whopper lair.